Окей. Давайте тогда начинать. Memphis, I will speak for you in English just to translate. We are going to start, and I will announce the speakers and what we're discussing here today. Ашот, включи, пожалуйста, камеру. У кого-то не выключен микрофон.
Еще просьба выключить, пожалуйста, все микрофоны, потому что у нас идет эхо и может мешать спикерам выступать. Поэтому, если вы в формате слушателя, пожалуйста, отключите ваши микрофоны слева внизу в Zoom.
Да. Сейчас все, нет эха, все отлично. Да, дорогие коллеги, всем привет. Благодарю за участие. Сегодня мы организовали мероприятие по выходу ИТ Африка. Можно смело сказать, что это трек Африка для российского IT. Организаторами мероприятия сегодня выступили Ленар Халиков, руководитель отдела маркетинга и инноваций «Унистрой», Александр Просекин, предприниматель, руководитель различных компаний по содействию поступления в международные университеты. Прямо сейчас он находится в Владивостоке. Сергей Марданов, член рабочей группы «Кадры для цифровой экономики» в АНО Цифровой экономики. И я, председатель Совета по развитию внешней торговли и в Общественном совете Минэкономразвития. Комиссия внешнеэкономической деятельности. Значит, наше мероприятие поддержано финансовым университетом при правительстве РФ, а именно факультетом международных экономических отношений и фондом развития цифровой экономики. Самая главная тема, зачем мы сегодня собрались, для того, чтобы наши IT-компании получили такой общий взгляд из разных частей Африки. Африка для нас кажется одним большим целым и непонятным, но все-таки это много разных стран со своей спецификой, со своим пониманием, со своими рынками. И сегодня у нас выступит Мэтьюс Мтумбука. Он возглавляет Совет Малавийского университета науки и технологий и входит в советы директоров различных компаний. Павел Шибилов, он руководит проектом по международному развитию в РЭЦ, именно треком Ближнего Востока Африка. И Ашот Данилян, бизнес-посол деловой России в Замбии, который как раз готовит в ближайшее время бизнес-миссию в Замбию. Мне бы хотелось кратко дать слово для вступления. Ашот, прошу вас, договорились в самом начале дать слово, для того, чтобы коллеги получили возможность поучаствовать, может быть, даже прям так быстро в африканском треке, полетев в Замбию.
Спасибо, Максим. Добрый день, коллеги. Слышите меня? Видно?
Да.
Меня зовут Ашот Данилян. Я владелец группы компании «Терморос» и по совместительству бизнес-посол деловой России в Замбии. Я хотел вам коротко рассказать про страну, совсем чуть-чуть, и про нашу предстоящую миссию. Я хоть не в IT-сфере, но значит, благодаря Максиму, спасибо Максиму, он мне дал возможность сегодня с вами пообщаться. Возможно, это будет полезно для вас, и наша предстоящая миссия готова принять несколько человек из присутствующих сегодня на этой встрече. Значит, Замбия — страна центральноафриканская, население примерно 20 миллионов человек. В основном это горнодобывающая и сельскохозяйственная промышленность. Они дают основной вклад в ВВП страны, и полезные ископаемые — это основная часть экспорта. ВВП на душу населения примерно там 3,5 тысячи в эквиваленте долларового. Значит, граничит с 8 странами. С этой точки зрения, как центр, откуда можно экспортировать на ближайшие рынки, достаточно успешное расположение, хотя не имеет прямого выхода к морю. Для IT-сегмента это, наверное, не самое главное. Значит, есть свободные экономические зоны, активно развивается государственно-частное партнерство, и новое правительство, которое пришло недавно, года 2 назад, пытается всячески активировать переработку внутреннюю, создание добавленной стоимости и развивать в том числе технологические отрасли, транспорт, IT, энергетику, в том числе альтернативную энергетику. Сейчас, например, ввиду проблем, которые есть в ЮАР, Замбия частично экспортирует электричество в ЮАР, где идут перебои поставок, перебои с электричеством. Мы где-то год назад, значит, были в Замбии с поездкой, заключили договор о сотрудничестве с местными общественными организациями, в том числе ТПП. Есть там агентство развития Замбии, которое помогает инвесторам туда войти. Есть льготные программы для инвестиций и, значит, возможность воспользоваться этими льготами через вот эти наши точки входа. Значит, мы готовим поездку туда в начале августа. Значит, вот на экране сейчас вы можете увидеть программу этой поездки. Приурочили поездку к выставке Agriculture and Trade Show. Но там на самом деле не только agriculture, не только trade. Все министерства в том числе будут иметь стенды на выставке. Можно, значит, с ними пообщаться будет, заранее договориться о встречах, зафиксировать время, день и, значит, пообщаться по интересам. Поэтому, если есть среди вас желающие или заинтересованные, здесь у нас в чате сейчас в вебинаре участвует мой помощник Марина Ведринская. Она, прошу ее сейчас свои координаты обозначить в чате. И если у вас будут вопросы или какие-то запросы информации, пожелания, вы через нее сможете получить всю необходимую информацию и, значит, закрыть свои вопросы. Со своей стороны хочу сказать, что Африка сейчас в фокусе нашей повестки внешнеэкономической, один из фокусов, и, конечно же, играет очень важную роль. Колоссальный рынок с точки зрения IT, это, наверное, один из самых растущих, предстоящих рынков. Средний возраст населения в Замбии и в Африке, наверное, в целом очень невысокий, порядка 30-35 лет, ну, в том числе ввиду ранней смертности, но с точки зрения как раз потенциальной аудитории для IT, услуг, на мой взгляд, это прямая целевая аудитория. Хочу сказать еще, что, значит, у нас сейчас на регистрации в Замбии местная компания под названием Open Africa. Это будет консалтинговая компания, которая будет помогать российским и африканским бизнесменам, и не только замбийским, налаживать взаимные контакты, значит, инвестиционные, внешнеторговые проекты, совместные предприятия и так далее и тому подобное. Я благодарю вас всех за внимание и, значит, желаю успешной работы на сегодняшней нашей сессии. Спасибо еще раз за возможность участвовать в ней.
Да, Ашот, благодарю. Попроси, пожалуйста, помощницу сбросить прямо в чат программу, потому что уже пишут коллеги, чтобы все
свои контакты, так что и программу, и свои контакты в чат.
Да, со своей стороны хочу сказать, что Ашот действительно посвящает много времени Африке, так детально рассказывает про Замбию и возможности, что у нас уже целая большая группа из «Деловой России» решила посетить и увидеть, что называется, своими глазами.
Я в нее влюбился.
Да, благодарю, Ашот. И сейчас мы переходим. Now we are coming to our main speaker, and our main speaker is Matthews Ntumbukam. Matthews.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah. The main idea of today's session for all of us is to get a vision how to go to Africa. Should you go to Africa? Should you be afraid of Africa? Etc. Because currently we are talking to the major IT companies, founders who seeks to go to Africa and develop their market. So as far as you know, frankly, I will tell you short that for most of us, Africa is, well, Egypt, you are, and like maximum like this. So all the rest is Africa, because it's very hard for us to distinguish all 50 countries of Africa. So please let us share your vision as far as you are deeply involved in business in Africa, and you are the head of Malawi University of Science and Technology. So you're the person who knows Africa from inside. So please tell us what should be the perception of Africa, how we should think about Africa, how we should come to analyze, and what are the first steps for companies to do to come to Africa. And for sure, we'll see all the questions from our colleagues in chat, and we'll discuss it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Maxim. Should I presume that I have 30 minutes and then maybe do 20 minutes presentation?
For sure.
And 10 minutes of discussion, is that okay?
For sure, let's do it.
Wonderful. That's good. So let me share my screen to share my slides. Share. Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. So maybe just a little bit about me. I did engineering in Malawi, University of Malawi, finished in 2002. Then I went to University of Oxford in England, 2002. I did my PhD in engineering. I specialized in telecoms, finished 2005. Then I worked with Shell Oil in Europe for 3 to 4 years. Then I resigned to come back to Africa. And my first job was in Malawi, back to my home country, as head of technical services or chief technical officer for a company that was doing technology for banks. It was owned by the central bank called Manswitch. I did that for 2-3 years. Then I joined Airtel. Airtel is like Vodafone or MTN. It's one of the biggest African telcos. I was with Airtel for 8 years as IT director in Malawi. Then I worked in Rwanda with them, and I worked in Nairobi, where I was IT governance head for Airtel in Africa across 18 countries. So that gave me a very good exposure to many markets within Africa. And then I left in 2019 when I became CEO of Boonnet Alliance, which supplies internet to universities across 26 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa. So I traveled a lot within Southern Africa and beyond, 2019 to 2021 for 2.5 years. And then I joined Helios Towers as the managing director for Helios Towers Malawi. And then I quit. Now I'm setting up my own IT company in Malawi, FinTech, which we'll discuss in due course. Now, in terms of my presentation, I'll look at the digital landscape in Africa. Then I'll look at business disruption. I'll look at FinTech and the financial payment changes. I'll look at the political and economic factors to consider, and then what kind of support is there for entrepreneurs that want to come to Africa. In terms of the landscape in Africa, we're seeing a big exponential growth in financial technologies, FinTechs, and we're seeing a continued, especially rise in use of mobile money. In Africa, a lot of transactions are through mobile money. Just as I was signing up this talk here, I asked my wife to send me $500 equivalent of mobile money into my wallet, because I needed to send money to somebody that is doing landscape development at one of my businesses. So he wrote me a message. He said, send the money $400 now. The convenient way is mobile money. So that's the in thing in Africa. Most of the transactions are through mobile money. So we need to have this at the back of our mind, because money drives business, money drives IT. And since 2011, we've seen almost 1,000 growth in mobile money in Africa. And as we know, nearly half of the mobile money transactions in the world is in sub-Saharan Africa. So sub-Saharan Africa is doing about half of all the volume of money transactions in the world. So we should have that at the back of mind. And then with this, there is also associated mobile money powered ecosystems that we need to take into account. And also, quite importantly, in Africa, there is a big drive to reduce the cost of data bundles, cost of internet. So for the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of telcos and a lot of the internet service providers reducing the price for internet. We're seeing data centers mushrooming in Africa. Big companies are building up their own data centers, but also B, we're seeing a lot of independent data centers where you can now go and maybe put your server there, or even cloud computing. We're seeing infrastructure as a service is coming up, so that's an opportunity for investment. And we're seeing that we had a lot of IT skills gaps in Africa. Most of gaps now are closing. For example, coding, and I'll talk about it shortly. We now have programmers, we now have database experts in Africa. So the skills in Africa is improving. It's another business opportunity that I'll talk about. Number 8 is cybersecurity. We're seeing now ransomware attacks in Africa. We're seeing major security problems. It is, in a way, a business opportunity from security side. And I know that Russia is good at information security. So I think that's also one area of interest for entrepreneurship, for investment in cybersecurity solutions. This just to show you how the landscape in Africa changes in terms, for example, if you look at it, we started from globally at the top there. We know how EasyJet and this budget airliners changed the whole world. We know how Uber changed the world. I put a hotel there in Zambia, Pamodzi Hotel. If you go to Zambia, I think you're familiar with this hotel. I put it there because lodges, premier lodges, have disrupted the tourism industry in Africa, where smaller lodges provide good service, and then the big hotels are struggling with that. This just to show that even in digital, we're seeing lots of changes. I put down there how the old transport systems in Africa were the big buses, then we had the mini buses. Now most people go on the taxis or even motorbike taxis carrying, you can see there 4 people or even a bicycle. So things are changing fast in Africa, and we need to be reading the game. Here I'm showing an example of payment systems in Zambia. You will see there checks at the bottom. In 2010, checks were commanding 57% of all the transactions in Zambia. 2022, only 1.4%. Nobody's making check payment in Zambia now. ATMs, cash machines were 26% in 2010, and in 2022, only 10%. Less than half of what was happening, ATM happening now. But if you look at more, that's mobile money now. In 2010, there was nothing. In 2011, there was nothing. In 2016, it was 35%. 2021, almost 43%. And last year, 50%. So half of the transactions in Zambia are mobile money, almost like Malawi. And if you go to the Malawi picture, it's similar. You see there that ATM has gone down from, in terms of value, 0.9 billion before, and then to 0.6 billion. If you go to mobile money value, mobile money was 3.1 trillion kwacha in 2020, and now is 5 trillion. It's almost doubling from 2020 to 2021. So it's actually, in terms of percentage, 63%. You can see the moment in Malawi and Zambia as examples. That's why I'm saying it's not the strongest of species that survives, but the most adaptable, as Darwin told us. Here's an example where companies in the West, America, Europe, are scrambling for digital skills that have been enhanced in Africa. And I'm saying, look, even in Russia, it means the IT company, you can even have coders or programmers in Africa at least at half the labor cost. So in Russia, you can have the senior programmers, the program managers, the project managers, but some of the digital skills you can procure, because these days with post-COVID, we know that physical boundaries have collapsed. So that's an opportunity for investors in Russia to even be cost efficient by using digital skills in Africa at less than half the price. Then I'm now looking at the political and economic factors. So here I'm saying African economies are complex, rich and poor. What I mean there is, if you look at Malawi and Zambia or Kenya, Tanzania, Namibia, these countries are poor. But inside those poor countries, there are people who are millionaires and billionaires and making money. So out there, you just hear Africa, there is kwashoko, there's no food, there's poverty. But come here, you find big people who are rich. You find foreigners making big money here. Indians making big money in Africa. They've mastered the art. The Chinese are now learning how to make money in Africa. And I'm happy that the Russians too want to come here. And they are most welcome to come to Africa and make money amid its problems. You see, behind every problem, there is an opportunity. So it's good not to just be lost by the normal talk that Africa is poor. There are people making big money here. Why did I resign from Shell when I had a big career in Europe, come back to Africa? Because I knew that if you have the skills, if you have the vision in Africa, you can make the money. Number two, I'm saying Forex challenge and opportunity. Forex is a challenge because of two things. Number one, most African countries are struggling to have enough dollars. Number two, most African economies are devaluing their local currency year in, year out. So that's a challenge. The opportunity is where you bring IT skills that address the government in a way where you help the government to solve the Forex challenge. For example, you bring in IT systems that do what we call the importation substitution. IT solution that help the government to reduce on importing things. For example, maybe certain fintech or applications for banking systems, instead of the banks importing applications from abroad, if you're able to use the local skills to build solutions locally, it means you are removing the importation cost for the government. Number three, I'm saying government are need of partners for impact and economic transformation. Every government in Africa has 4 or 5 years to be in office, during which they have to go back to the populace to win election. So if you are investing in an African country in a way to make the government look good, in a way that makes the government have impact and transformation on the society, then you'll be relevant for the economy and therefore you could thrive because government will support you. Number 4 is very important. When you come to Africa, in the past people thought you need to work with the politicians and what. You need to be very careful because politicians come and go. In the past, African governments should be there for 20 years, 30 years. These days, democracy in Africa is maturing. Governments come and can be kicked out. So it's important as a strategy, as an investor in Africa, to come in a way that you, A, you work with the government of the day, B, you work more with the government in the ministries rather than the politicians. Well, the politicians, he's a cabinet minister today, 2 months he's fired. So it's good to align with the employed officers in government in terms of social capital, networking. So I'm seeing a lot of colleagues in business in Africa aligning more with the government officials who are employed, who are longer term, because politicians come and go. Politicians, you still need them here and there, but in terms of working, it's good to be closer to the employed government. And then I'm now looking at the regulatory environment. I'm saying that the regulatory environment in Africa, if I compare with the Russia, Europe, the West, and America, is moderate level. It's not a tightly regulated environment. It is still evolving, it is still growing. And the good thing is that in Africa, sometimes they will tell you, play, we are watching you as we are developing the rules. For example, you're bringing something that is new, there is no regulation framework for it. You'll be allowed, they'll give you maybe no objection later to say, play it nicely, we'll build the rules together with you. For example, mobile money. I was there in 2010 when we were rolling out mobile money for Airtel Malawi. And we asked for the regulatory requirements from the Central Bank of Malawi. They said, we don't have. We give you a letter, no objection. Be doing mobile money, we'll be building the rules as you play the game. And we built the rules together with them as we were building the business. So I'm saying players contribute to the development of the evolving regulatory framework. Data protection is nowhere close to what you have in Europe at all. Data protection is still something we are learning, something that is coming in. African countries are beginning to enact data protection acts. Some of them have done it, but now the implementation is still in the early stages. However, most African governments have been very reluctant to have financial data deposited abroad or in the cloud systems up to very recently. However, we're seeing with time they are relaxing a bit on that, and that I think is a good development in terms of flexibility for the digital industry. Now, lastly, I want to look at entrepreneurship structures or support systems for entrepreneurs wanting to invest in Africa. First, I'm saying in the past, to register companies in Africa was a big challenge. It took a long time to register companies. Most African countries have resolved this because they know for them to develop their industry, they need to make registration of businesses easier. Rwanda, for example, I went with a friend to Rwanda in 2016 to register a company. Within 2 days, all the registration was done. In Malawi too now, typically 1 week, maximum two weeks, you'll be fully registered with everything. In the past, that would have been months. So nowadays you can fly into Malawi and they give yourself 1-2 weeks and start from scratch, and you have your company registered. Now, there's a question, do you do it remotely? Do you do it without local partnership? My view is that if you're going to do business in Africa, it's good to have some partnership of some sort. For example, you may have an entity or somebody from the country where you operate with minority shareholding. When we set up the IT company in Rwanda with my friend, what we did was we offered 5% to a local lawyer who was my friend in Rwanda, so that we have somebody who can help us to maneuver locally as local content, but also gives credibility. The government will trust you more if there's somebody who has shareholding from local. Even if it's 5%, you lose nothing. If not shareholding, then at least maybe MOU, memorandum of understanding, with a partner that you do things together in business at some level. That also will help you because you have the local knowledge, local content, and local support. So on the balance, I'm saying, could you work remotely? Yes, to some degree. At least initial presence, initially coming to Africa to understand the market 1-2 weeks, and having partners that you work with, I think is very important and vital, because we're seeing rising trends of fraud in Africa. We're seeing rising issues of trust in Africa. I want to be realistic. So when you're doing business in Africa today, it's different than 30 years ago when, in general, most Africans were trusting. But these days, you need to know who you're dealing with. And therefore, it's important to also have some presence of people that you trust, that you deal with, to manage the risk of fraud, where you may have been doing business over a long time, and you only to know that you've been cheated. The risk is not high, but it's important to be coming here or to have partners on the ground. So this is the high-level background of the landscape in Africa and the investment opportunities. But I would want us to discuss specific questions or needs surrounding this topic, and I'm available now to respond to your questions or comments on this topic. Thank you very much, Maxim.
Thank you very much, Matthews. It's really good and quick, very analyzed information about African market, and I do believe that lots of interesting points. And so let's go through some questions which was sent in advance to us when we was preparing the seminar. And also I would ask my colleagues, please write down information and questions and the message. Here you can see the message and just write down. So one new message appeared just. Matthews, would it be possible to share your files after this meeting? Yeah, Matthews, people ask you.
Sorry, come again, Maxim. You say, will it be possible to show what?
Yeah, actually, all your information and your contacts also.
Oh, yes. I'll share with Alexander and you. First of all, I'll send Alexander these slides, and at the end there of the slides, there is my contacts there, and also send through Alexander to you. Yeah, I'll do that. So that if there is any specific, number one, if there's any follow-up questions after this via email or WhatsApp on that email, I'm available. And also, if you want contacts in most of the African countries, I have contacts in South Africa, in Zambia, in Kenya, Tanzania, in Mauritius. In half of the African countries, I'm a starting point.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
guys, if you want to ask something, you can also in person. You can also just mark that you had a question, and we'll allow you to talk. So please do it. And meanwhile, I will ask the question in advance. So there was a question about IT technologies and especially blockchain technologies in different spheres. Is that right? That in Africa you can pay with cryptocurrency and there is no any laws against it, and there is a demand for blockchain technologies as well?
Yeah, maybe we can ask three of them, then I can take them together.
Okay. What is the level of digitalization of healthcare in Africa, and is it any chance to come to Africa with suggestions to digitalize healthcare?
Good, thank you.
What are IT solutions for public transportations? What are the best countries in Africa to start with for solution in IT sector for public transportations?
Thank you very much, Maxim. So let me start with the blockchain and whether there's a regular framework and whether you can make those payments. That is one area where a lot of African governments are beginning to study. Most countries don't yet have the regulatory framework. The approach is, yes, you can make the payments. Yes, it's exactly what I said earlier on, where they'll say, play the game, play it safe. We are building the rules as the game continues. So this is the same approach on the blockchain and related technologies. And I would say for Africa, it is a long-term opportunity, not an immediate one. But a long term, and I think it's good to enter that space now to grow with it, because I see it growing big in the next 5 to 7 years time. On healthcare, I think that's one of the big investment opportunity to digitalize healthcare. There are few players entering that space. It is not yet mature. The demand is big. It is an immediate opportunity for investment. I've seen some players doing really well in that space, and I would really encourage any interested investors in the digitalization of healthcare in Africa, because healthcare in Africa right now, some of the biggest industries are agriculture, apart from the traditional mining and stuff, mining and oil. Beyond mining and oil, the new big industries in Africa are education, health, and agriculture. So if you can go in these three, these are the three big emerging industries in Africa. And to digitalize healthcare and even digitalize the education, one has a big gains to have in there. So I'd strongly endorse digitalization of healthcare in Africa, because it is still made in. In terms of IT solutions for public transportation, this one is interesting because most of the African countries, Zambia, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, Lesotho, Botswana, and all these, you have very limited organized public transport. Most of the public transport in these countries is, as I showed in that slide, let me go back. So we coming, if you see at the bottom there, we're coming from where 20 years ago, most of African countries I've mentioned had very organized big buses across the country, even into rural areas. Then we went through the matatus, the small minibuses, which are private owned by small. So one person will have one or 5 or 10 minibuses. Now you even have the taxis all over. So I think it's an opportunity to build solutions, but with a background in mind that you don't have 2-3 big transportation companies. No, you have individuals having 3-4 buses, somebody having 10 vehicles, or some of them just their own. So having, in a way, some digital solution that makes it easier, for the passenger to know how to optimally, because most passengers now in Africa, they don't want waiting time. They want to quickly catch some transport to go where they're going. Number 2, the payment systems. the owners of these vehicles or minibuses, etc., are not driving. Their biggest problem, they're cheated. They don't get the money they need to get. So if there is a solution that A, addresses the convenience of the passenger to quickly know where to get what to ride on to go to where they're going. B, to protect the money of the owner of the vehicle. I think if these two are addressed in some form or another, there is a big opportunity for IT investment in digital solutions for public transport in Africa. A huge one. I met one or two from, I think they were from Europe, in Blanta 6 months ago. They're trying to study the Malawi economy. Related to this, Maxim, is the collection of money for what we call the city councils in the markets and all these things. Half the money doesn't reach the city councils. And I've seen one or two players trying to go in that space where across Africa, if one can come with digital solutions that help the city and town councils to collect all their money into their bank accounts, I think that is a big opportunity. There is a hand from Ashot. Maxim, do you want us to listen to him maybe?
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to add that what concerns the digital transport solutions, Yandex is already in Zambia.
Oh, good. That's good. Is that working already, Ashot? Then Ashot, can you reach out to me? Are you involved in Zambia?
I'm starting.
Yeah, can we have a chat, because Malawi has an option. I've known somebody trying in Malawi, but the opportunity is very big. So, Ashot, could we have a chat about this with what is happening in Zambia? I want to understand.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Malawi, there's big opportunity for that one.
Thank you very much. And we have some more questions. Our co-organizer, Ленар. Ленар, welcome.
Yeah, Matheus, thank you very much for your presentation. I have maybe personal question, maybe professional question. What do you think? Where is the biggest opportunity? I mean, what's the sphere or what's the type maybe of business in Africa now, in IT, of course? Biggest opportunity, how do you think?
I think that the biggest opportunity in IT in Africa, I'll put them in terms of maybe three. Number one is the data. So internet data in Africa is growing roughly 30 to 40% year on year, the amount of data consumed in any African country. So if one is able to invest in metropolitan last mile fiber in the cities, you're bound to make big money. The capital might be big, but the long-term payback is massive. You have a young population in Africa, as you know. Most African countries will have half the population below the age of 20. So it means that in the next 5-6 years, all these will be graduating into very data-hungry citizens. That's number one. Number two is fintechs, financial technologies for the banks and financial sector. The financial sector in Africa is big and blossoming and makes a lot of money, and they have big budgets for investment in IT. Most banks' capital investment will be at least 40% in IT. So pick a bank in Africa, 40% of their annual budget for CapEx is IT. So it means already at budget level, you are attacking a fat budget or fat resource available. So if you're doing any solutions in the financial sector, you are already playing in a field where there's a lot of money available, budget available, and they want solutions for their banks. The entity I'm setting up myself, one major thrust will be the fintechs. So for those interested in fintechs, we can have a further chat about this, because fintech is definitely something big focus. So for me, I think data investment in the data in the metropolitan and provision of internet service at a good price, reliable, and then number two, fintechs. I think those you can't go wrong. In addition to the digitalization of the health sector.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, Matheus, would be another questions which is like important for our companies. Okay, let's imagine we found a strategy to set up and to go to Africa for IT companies. And then we have 50 countries to choose.
Yeah.
And for sure, there are some of them who will need our product, others who will not. Firstly, what is the way to connect to them? Should we write emails, make Zooms? Because we definitely cannot go for all 50 countries. Secondly, who should be the partner there? Should it be a distributor? Should it be IT integrator? Should it be hired personnel, our own staff? Or what is the best way? And then perhaps some recommendations how to collaborate with people. Should be for how it's common to Africa, because for example in Arab world you would never even discuss a topic at the first point. You will just get introduction and that's it. Should it be straightforward in Africa and here's the topic and here's how we can earn money, or what should it be?
Good question, Maxim. So interest strategy for Africa. I think that number one, the way Africa works, it will be difficult to invest without going there. But at the same time, as I say, you can't go to 50 countries in Africa, and you can't be going there every month. It doesn't. It won't make economic sense. It won't be feasible. It will be cumbersome. I think that the number one is to be strategic about engagement. So, for example, I know in August, and I'll share with you the details, Maxim. In August, there will be a conference in Uganda for all the IT associations in Africa. Yeah. So I think that's a good opportunity, and I'm likely to be invited as a speaker. I've been nominated as a speaker, but not yet finalized. Likely I will be. Regardless, I want to connect you. I think that's a good forum to go to, because in 3-4 days, you'll be meeting the main drivers of digital and IT across Africa. So can you imagine 3 days you're meeting people from Botswana, Zambia, Uganda, DRC, Rwanda, pick and choose. And as people are presenting, you'll be seeing where to start from. So I think going to 2-3 conferences in a year where all the major players in African digital space are is very strategic, because in one place, 5 days, you meet people from all the different places and able to see which are the major niche areas to go into and which country. That's number one. Number two, I think that once you pick a country or two where you want to penetrate, be looking at these countries as blocks. So for example, if you enter Zambia already, just having business in Zambia, you should be looking at Malawi, Zimbabwe, and to some degree DRC. We are almost similar. We are one block there. So by being in Zambia, those already in Zambia, Malawi, Zimbabwe, DRC will easily work. If one is in Kenya, that's the Eastern Bloc. It means that if you're in Kenya, you're already looking at a strategy where in the next 2-3 years, you'll be able to attack Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania, because those are sister countries that have the Eastern Bloc. So, and then if you're in Zambia, you have the Southern African together, and then going into the Eastern Africa becomes easy. So I would think that you should be looking at a launch country in Africa, and within that launch, you're already looking at the 3-4 countries where you go to within 2-3 years. And then once you've done that block, you can go to the other block. So I think divide Africa into sub-regions: Southern Africa, Eastern, Central, Western, and North Africa. And these are all different. So if you go Algeria and Egypt, they're very different from Zambia. That's a fact. Yeah. So I think it's good to block to break Africa into about 4-5 regions, and then pick a region where you are more interested and pick a hub, get it right there, then speed over around that, and then within 4-5 you can cover most of Africa. I hope that in terms of how do you break Africa for early entry, it is through strategic conferences. In terms of penetration, pick a country and understand the block, 3-4 countries around that for spreading within 3-4 years, and then you can go to another block. I think that will be the best approach. But to pick Malawi and then Algeria and then Uganda doesn't make logical sense. But I think organically growing within the region geographically would be very, very natural. Because look, if you're in Zambia, you land in Zambia on Monday, you're there 3-4 days, you can even drive to Malawi, you can even drive to Zimbabwe. We are all one small region there.
It's a little bit scared for us.
Sorry?
We're a little bit afraid to do that. Is it safe?
Are you?
Afraid?
Is it safe? Very safe. The only, in this part of Africa, the only country where I would say you need to be very careful is the DRC.
Okay.
DRC, Somalia, Sudan. These ones, be very careful. Even when I was in Rwanda, I wanted to go to DRC. My friends stopped me. They said, "Don't go there."
Okay.
So DRC, Somalia, Sudan, these ones, you need to know what you're doing. The rest, Africa is safe. The animals are in the game reserves. When you go to game reserves, follow the rules. The rest of the Africa, you're fine.
Thank you very much. And
Cheers.
yeah, thank you very much, Mathis. I think that is very good presentation. And meanwhile, we could have some questions. I want to pass the word to our colleague Pavел Шибилов, who is the head of division which supervises relations with Africa and Middle East in Russian Export Center. So they are the main guys responsible to support Russian export companies going to Africa. And I will ask him, Pavel, you can choose either English or Russian. It's up to you.
По-русски, да, большая часть же тут русский говоришь или как?
Ребят, коллеги, как лучше, чтобы Мэфьюс был вовлечен в разговор, нам бы по-хорошему по-английски. Если нет возражений, вот по-английски, в принципе, не против.
I'll try my best.
Maxim, yes. Before Pablo continues, there was a question from Victoria there. Can we just deal with it, maybe just as the last one?
So government
Victoria
doesn't have much requirements for transport. This one, yeah? Okay.
Yes, that one. I want to understand what she means. She says, so government doesn't have much requirements for transport operation. Oh, I see. Yes. From what I explained, I don't think government, no. When you're looking at digital solutions for public transport in Africa, mostly you'll be looking at the private sector. I'm talking of the typical African, so Uganda, Malawi, Zambia, and Botswana, and all these. In there, Maxim, going by your definition, I'm removing Egypt and South Africa, right? Because those are half Europe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So please be here. Pavel will make his presentation about Russian export support, and in the end we'll discuss to finalize our meeting.
Good.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's really very hard to say something, to add something new after such a prominent speaker, and I'll try my best. I'll just give a few words about Russian Export Center and our vision on digitalization, or now what we call the digital transformation of African continent. As I always say, when we say Africa in general, any generalization is a simplification. We should not use the same approach when we speak about Northern Africa, South African Republic, or Malawi, for example. There are, of course, some common patterns, but one should understand that every country has its own agenda, has its own strategy, has its own history, has its own level of education of people, has its own level of people who are connected to internet. Some countries has power grid, some countries are more successful with the coverage. All of these issues should be taken into consideration. From the academical point of view, not only academical but general point of view, I strongly suggest that before entering the market, people should examine so-called Agenda 2063 is a general document adopted by African Union and pays a lot of role of the digitalization. There is some countries have strategies, different digital strategies, and if you compare digital strategy of Egypt and digital strategy of Rwanda, you'll see there are different steps which should be taken, and you can also participate in government to business partnership in order to fill some steps of these strategies. All of the governments of Africa considers IT technologies as a factor for social and economical stability of the country. Of course, what is also interesting that there was some kind of gap, and people were waiting that some kind, most of the countries of Africa, they skipped that what we called in Europe industrial revolution, etc. In some countries, you can see that even some Maasai tribes, they already have smartphones, they know how to send money, they keep this level. So this gives us a lot of good and interesting hopes that African IT sector will develop rapidly. As you probably know, soon there will be second Russian-African summit. I will send the links for those who want to register, who still did not register for that, to the organizers of this conference, and those who are interested might register. We are going next year because, as previous speakers said, that rules are taken later than the development. The digitalization of Africa and digitalization of the world is going on so rapidly that sometimes you don't have even time to regulate it, and sometimes it's useless to regulate. I will tell you a few things how Russian Expert Center can support. If you register, we have the site of Russian Expert Center, www.expertcenter.ru. Once you register there, you'll see the full scale of services that we have. Do not forget, if you're registered in the region, that in 82 regions and in Moscow, they have their own regional support expert centers, which gives you a lot of support. As for example, they can compensate the participation in the exhibition with the individual stand, and you can have this opportunity. I would also mention a special exhibition and business mission that are carried out. On this site, you can see the full information. You can register in advance and see. Of course, we are pushing next year, maybe we'll have some kind of IT business mission, especially for Africa. But as for example, when we speak about business mission in IT sphere, do not focus only on Africa. As for example, if we speak about Emirates, in Emirates, people use it also as a hub to work in Africa, and many African businessmen come for this exhibition. So you should just have a small study and see where it's where would you like to participate. With all of that, some people already said about Yandex. Yes, Yandex are not only in Zambia, they are currently taking part in some Northern African countries. In Cameroon, they are quite successful. So Yandex is one of the first project that will move further and further. And look at the legislation of the countries which are you should do some kind of homework, preliminary study, use education. For example, there is some good opportunities in Rwanda, good opportunities in Kenya. If I'm not mistaken, Tanzania is going to adopt some kind of special requirements. So that how it works. I would not take your time. I just urge you, as I think this is the first the general conference like this, and I would also like to thank the organizers of this meeting for this invitation. But I do believe together, and especially with your help, with the help of the entrepreneurs who would tell us what kind of support would they appreciate, what do they need, which countries should we focus on, we would try our best to help and to facilitate, because the development is taking place much faster than the government support and all of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pavel. Matthews, are you here? Yep. First of all, I would like to...
Yes, I'm here. I am here. I'm here. Yes.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you both for this very great presentation. Pavel also lived a lot in Africa and has gone through lots of different countries, and I do believe that there is a good road for cooperation between Russian Export Center, Malawi, IT companies of Russia. And Matthews, you mentioned that there was a big IT event in Uganda. If you connect us with organizers, my team will coordinate it, and perhaps some Russian delegation could even could even join. Would be also great.
That'd be good.
Yes.
So, Maxim, if you can get my contacts from Alexander.
Sure.
So then I'll share you by tomorrow. I'll get the contacts today, then tomorrow I'll share you.
Yeah, sure. Guys, if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will point. Here's I will point Telegram for anyone could write afterwards and have some questions about Africa. Meanwhile, waiting for.
And by the way, the Maxim, my number I shared is on WhatsApp. It's also on Telegram.
Yep. Here it is. WhatsApp and Telegram. Just in case not to be lost. Whoever wants to connect. Yeah.
Sure.
And guys, I would like to thank you, because I do believe that there was a very good presentation from both sides, and we'll for sure come to Russian Export Center for support for our IT companies, and Matthews will coordinate, consult, help, assist in different ways. And Matthews, could you at the end tell us perhaps some ways which already did your IT companies, where you are the member of board of directors, how they spread themselves among Africa, how they was founded in Malawi and moved to other parts of Africa? How was the way for them?
Right. Yeah, so when I was the IT director for Airtel in Rwanda, I helped a Malawian IT company to come to Rwanda. It's called Spark Systems, and they are more into IT infrastructure, hardware, storage, and databases. What we did was I asked a friend to come to Rwanda for 1 week, and I did two things. One is I already set up a one-day conference of all the IT directors. So I got all the major IT directors for all the banks and telcos and big companies for an evening cocktail and thing. And then my friend came. So through my connections in Rwanda, we brought like 20 to 30 the big IT decision makers in one place. And he came there to present. So this was like on a Friday. He came a weekend before. So by Wednesday, he was registered already. And on Friday, he was presenting this new company to the IT gurus, main decision makers. And then the next week, he had the office in the place and recruited the one or two people there with support from the original country, Malawi. 5 years on now, it's a big operation in Rwanda. And then because it did well, After 2 years, he went to open in Zambia as well. So number one is to have a local person who has connections. You need somebody who locally is well connected in the IT space, and then through that person, you need to invite 3 to 10 big IT gurus in that country. Every country, you have 5, 6 major IT people. If you meet those people, it's a good launch pad. I did the same for a Kenyan friend. He's in the cybersecurity in Kenya, and I brought him to Malawi. I again put together 10 to 20 IT gurus for breakfast with him. So a breakfast at his hotel, he presented to them what he does, and then following that, he got 2, 3 businesses for security. As they say, the rest of his history is now big in Malawi. He comes even without talking to me. He knows Malawi now, he does business. So I think number one is to have an anchor person in that country. And then number two, through that person have breakfast or cocktail or some easy informal meeting with the 5 to 10 major IT players in that, who are decision makers from the banking, telco, and other major industries. I think that's the best way to penetrate.
Thank you very much, Matthias. And dear friends, I would like on behalf of you all to thank our distinguished speaker, Matthias Mtumbuka, for very quick and at the same time deep vision for Africa and IT ways Russian companies to go to Africa. We, with all organizers, also thank you for joining the seminar. And for sure, if you want to go to Africa and you have your vision how your company will spread into African markets, you can connect us. I'm the head of Russian Trade Economic Development Center. It's our duty and our wish and the mission to support companies going to foreign markets for the last 10 years. So welcome and thank you very much for joining the seminar. Have a good day to everyone.